Stranger Things is easily one of the most successful Netflix original series, and it's really impossible to watch the show without being reminded of the infinite sources that the writers drew inspiration from. In fact, there are several random yet shocking things that inspired the series. Today, we'll be taking a look at some of them. First off, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. This one literally goes without saying. In fact, if you take a look at Duffer Brothers' inspirations, you'd be surprised to know that they've cited almost every Steven Spielberg movie at some point in the show. Of course, E.T. the Extraterrestrial is one of the films that's synonymous with the director, so it's no surprise that the Duffer Brothers have listed the film as the inspiration for Stranger Things. And the similarities are pretty obvious. If we take a look at the story of the film, it follows a young boy named Elliot who befriends a strange creature from another world and tries to protect him from his mother and the government agents. If you didn't know, the film has been described as the foundational text for Stranger Things. Elliot's relationship with E.T. is very similar to Eleven's relationship with Mike during the first season. And how can we forget the iconic bike rides, which are a work of art in both the film and the show. Even the set director for the show, Jess Royal, said that there's a subtle reference to E.T. in Mike's bedroom. If you paid close attention to the volume 1 of the 4th season, you might have noticed that the graffiti on the phone booth says E.T. phone home when we see Dustin calling Steve from school. But that's not it. There have been tons of references to E.T. from time to time, such as when Eleven gets dressed up and put in a blonde wig by Mike, much like Elliot's younger sister giving E.T. the same getup. Besides this, there's also a reference in the first season when the boys are eating pizza that has the same pepperoni and sausage flavor that Elliot drops at the beginning of the film. Secondly, the card game called Magic: The Gathering. The Duffer Brothers were obsessed with a card game named Magic: The Gathering in their childhood, which focuses on magic and wizards. In fact, they took inspiration from it for their first feature-length movie. Well, the film was made when they were just in middle school, and they describe it to be pretty unwatchable. But we have no doubt that young Lucas, Will, Dustin, and Mike would definitely try their hands on the game, which has been called as the 1990s answer to Dungeons & Dragons. And from what we know, the film featured Ross as a knight, Matt as a dwarf who had a cotton beard, and their friend Tristan as a paladin who was on a journey through the woods. Next up, the work of George Romero. The Duffer Brothers were also inspired by the incredible work of George Romero. If you didn't know, he's been named as the pioneer of the horror genre, called Father of the Zombie Film. Now we can tell you how the Duffer Brothers love to create the overall horror atmosphere in the show. In fact, they've stated they always wanted to pay tribute to the horror masters and horror movies which they grew up on. So no surprise here that they've made subtle references to George Romero's work throughout the show, with the most notable moment being the Battle of Mind Flayer at the end of the 3rd season. One of Romero's famous works is Dawn of the Dead, which featured a bloodbath in a shopping mall. This greatly inspired the show creators to feature some of the key moments in the show at the newly opened Starcourt Mall in Hawkins. Then, the work of Drew Struzan. This time, we have the Stranger Things poster designer, Kyle Lambert, who majorly took inspiration from the work of artist Drew Struzan. If you aren't familiar, Drew has an impressive portfolio of designing film posters for Hollywood classics such as Blade Runner, The Shawshank Redemption, Star Wars, Back to the Future, films in the Indiana Jones series, and many more. Drew's work has been described to have a unique and distinct style. You can tell it by taking a look at the posters. No wonder he's always been booked to sell the sci-fi storylines and communicate them to the audience in an eye-catching and unique way. Lambert said that Drew's posters were very compelling and successful at grabbing the attention of the people. Now we understand the references, and you've got to give him a round of applause for creating the show's posters in a similar, well-composed way. Also, famous movie villains. If you've seen the 4th season of the show, you'd be stunned at the performance of Jamie Campbell Bower as the monstrous Vecna, just like us. Really, his performance caught us all off guard this season. We had already seen him play villainous and morally gray characters in films like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, Fantastic Beasts and the Crimes of Grindelwald, and Twilight, and he gave it his best in all of the respective roles. But it's safe to say that his performance as Vecna was the best of them all, as it has been getting overwhelmingly positive reviews from the fans and the critics alike. But where did the actor take inspiration from to bring such a sinister and monstrous character to life? Well, Jamie said in an interview that he was provided with 2 sides when he auditioned for the role, one from Hellraiser and one from Primal Fear. But he decided to go with Hellraiser's villain Pinhead as the inspiration for the role. Besides this, he also looked into other classic characters like Freddy Krueger, Pennywise, Voldemort, as well as Dracula, both from Class Bang and Christopher Lee. Wait, did we mention Batman? While they were creating Stranger Things, the Duffer Brothers said that when they saw the commercials for Tim Burton's Batman, they thought it was the most mind-blowing thing they had ever seen. Unfortunately for them, the film was rated PG-13, so they weren't allowed to see it. but after whining about it for a while, they were able to convince their parents to get them a copy of the film on VHS. Matt Duffer said that it was the first time they got to know about directing. In fact, they were completely blown away by Tim Burton's marvelous work for the film. This made them watch all the films from the director, and they closely analyzed his art direction, visual style, as well as the music featured in those films, which had a personal stamp to it. That's when they realized they wanted to make movies. So we have to thank Tim Burton for that. You can see how they've taken inspiration from his work for the show, the most notable thing being the soundtrack of the film. The soundtrack of Tim Burton's movie has these dark, sinister vibes, and you can find them in the show's soundtrack as well as Jaws movie. Yes, the Duffer Brothers also took inspiration from this iconic shark film. In fact, it's one of their favorite films of all time. And did you know that the police officer from the film was actually the major source of inspiration for our beloved Jim Hopper? Besides this, the creators have also said that the looming fear of sharks was the major influence of the insane fear buildup due to the ominous presence of monsters in Hawkins. Even the show's cinematographer, Tim Ives, said that they didn't immediately want to reveal the monsters, much like the film, where we see the sharks at the very end. Similarly, the fear and frenzy surrounding the monsters keeps increasing the longer their presence stays unknown, much like the sharks. And if you paid close attention to Volume 1 of the 4th season, you might have noticed that there's a Jaws poster in Will's room, complete with that 80s fold from the middle. Kudos to the production designers here who paid close attention to the details, as most of the movie posters from the 80s had a fold down the middle when they were mailed to movie theaters. In fact, the showrunners were so inspired by the film that they originally wanted to name the show as Montauk. Yeah, you heard that right. Apparently, this would have been a tribute to the film, which was influenced by the exploits of shark fishermen in Montauk. And finally, It. You can tell there are very strong parallels between Stranger Things and It. So it comes as no surprise that the showrunners wanted to create a whole new world of horror, much like It. In fact, they wanted to direct one of the It films, but ended up taking Stranger Things instead. And just like the film, the show focuses on a group of young friends who confront a terrifying evil to protect their hometown. Coincidentally, Finn Wolfhard, who plays the role of Mike on the show, starred in the 2017 film. Well, that's a wrap for this video. Which one of these random inspirations for Stranger Things shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more amazing and exciting videos like this. See you in the next one.